with Lean Six Sigma. I would like to welcome you and thank you for taking the time to join us today. I will first address some logistical issues for the session and then introduce our speakers, Rick Haynes and Forrest Breifogel. A lot of material is planned for this 1-hour webinar, so the audio will be muted for the remainder of the presentation to ensure that we are able to get through the entire presentation in the time allowed. We will not be able to hear you, but you will be able to hear Forrest and Rick. Do not let this stop you from sending us text questions through the system during the presentation. We value your questions, and if Forrest and Rick cannot answer your question either during the webinar or at the end, we will either email you or give you a call with a response. There will also be a recording of the webinar available on our website, www.smartersolutions.com, within 24 hours. You will receive an email with a link to the recording. Please know that as a participant in this webinar, someone with Smarter Solutions will be giving you a call, but if you don't want us to contact you, please let us know that in the feedback survey at the end of the webinar. And I will now introduce our speakers. I have here with me today Forrest and Rick. Forrest is a professional engineer and an ASQ fellow. He has authored or co-authored 14 books and published over 150 technical articles. He recently completed a 5-book series and the Business Process Management Guidebook. The philosophy, the Integrated Enterprise Excellence, is a radical management advancement in the utilization and integration of scorecards, strategic planning, and process improvement. Forrest was named the Quality Professional of the Year for 2011 by Quality Magazine. He also received the prestigious Crosby Medal from the American Society for Quality in 2004. Forrest is currently located here with me in Austin, Texas, and he founded Smarter Solutions here in 1992. Rick Haynes has over 20 years of Lean and Six Sigma experience as a practitioner and is one of Smarter Solutions' senior instructors. Through his career, he is certified as a Master Black Belt, Champion, and a Yellow Belt, along with teaching and certifying professionals in all the Lean Six Sigma areas. His personal Lean Six Sigma work has spanned nearly all business types, including manufacturing, transactional, research and development. He has worked in all levels of the business, from entry level up to site engineering manager. His life experiences and skills will provide you today with an engaging discussion. Again, I thank you for joining us, and at this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Forrest and Rick.
Thank you, Alon. That was a wonderful introduction. Forrest and I, again, are sitting here in Austin, Texas, excited to go talk to you about this. What Alon said was really true. We'd like you to use the GoToMeeting interface to type in any questions. That way, if you miss something or we misspeak, you can catch us. We can fill you in right away. And we may interrupt in the middle and give you an answer, especially if it follows along with our topic. Both Forrest and I are instructors, so we don't mind being interrupted. We can always get back to what we're talking about, right, Forrest?
That's right.
We're good. So here we go. What's Lean Six Sigma? You'd think you know that, but again, we always like to start like it's a lesson. So what is it? Ideas, it's an improvement tool. There's lots of thoughts, and then it always gets to it, doesn't it, Forrest? Why is there 6 of them? Yeah. I always love it. But either way, it's really a mixture of Lean and Six Sigma. Lean and Six Sigma were independently developed in, I guess, late 80s, early 90s. And each stood on their own, but in the past 10, 15 years, when I think Forrest was one of the early ones to join them, realized that they don't need to be separate. Putting them together gives you a lot more powerful tool.
Yes, I think, Rick, that's really important. A lot of times organizations say, I'm going to start with Lean, and then I'm going to go to Six Sigma, where we think the metrics or whatever you're trying to prove should be pulling for the right tool, whether it's a Lean tool or a Six Sigma tool.
And I would tell you, I think every project uses both of them.
Yes, I think that's probably true.
But again, you're right, the balance changes. But what's interesting, I think, even to this day, if you could see us in the picture, we all got a little gray hair here. But Lean is very popular by itself. Six Sigma's popular by itself, and I think a lot of people who discuss it don't understand that really the best programs out there are really mixing them together. But it is. They're both still popular by themselves, let alone together. So how do businesses use it? Well, in the original days, a company would bring in a consultant and build up their own internal Lean Six Sigma or Six Sigma or Lean program. They would pick their top performers, put them in there, they'd create a department with a budget, they'd roll people through, and then move them back out to be business leaders. But now what we're seeing too is since it's really been more pervasive across, if not the world, we see it most every country now, people are now using it more to boost their career. Leading teams, helping their customers. But what I guess was missing in the early part is many of these people, even in the big Six Sigma programs, rolled back out to be better employees after they were a belt for a while. And that works both black and green.
Yes, I think one of the advantages of going through the Lean Six Sigma training is people start looking at the system as a process. A lot of times organizations are not really running their business as a process and the metrics associated with the output of that process.
So true. So true. And again, what the focus of this is how you can boost your career with it. So we're going to end this webinar with a discussion of the company and what we provide. In the middle of this talk, though, we're really going to talk about how Six Sigma in a non-project improvement sense can really benefit your career. Because I want to make a case, even if you have a company that's got a strong Lean Six Sigma department, program, whatever you call it, or you're all by yourself, you can use these tools to boost your career. So let's look back at the beginning. Like I said, most of the work was corporate deployments of an improvement program. They had quotas for how many projects you had to do, so much money you had to save. It was mostly internally trained people because you couldn't hire them at the time. But now I think most of our students, over half that we see coming through the classes, are really here for personal reasons. Whether or not it's the company sending them, they're here really to learn skills to be a better employee and boost their career, and many of them to change careers. It does help.
Now, I think some of the people are just looking for certification stamped on their head, and maybe they're not looking for the true skill set. But what we think is important to not only get a certification of some sort, but also have the skill set to be able to deliver, not just for project execution, but how you look at your organization and systems and so on.
To boost their career.
To boost their career, right.
I got to use the tricky phrase for us that we put in this webinar. We got to keep saying it.
Yep.
It's going to be memorable.
That's right.
All right, so what do we see? Forrest, I, and all of Smarter Solutions see a lot of patterns happening in business right now. To summarize some of them, most businesses have let staffing levels drop to the minimums, not a lot of fat left. A lot of companies are actually investing less in their employee development. It surprises me because they're getting more key personnel. It seems like they're focusing more on short-term financials and cash accumulation and minimizing risk. With the last one, we have seen a trend. It's been going on a long time, I know, but people are more apt now to hire somebody who's a belt, black or green, than training one. It almost seems like they'll just open a position and hire someone for that role that's also a black belt. And I think that's more prevalent now, and probably a lot because there's more of them around, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think so. And there's a lot of certifications out there, but from the employer's point of view, a lot of times when you start looking for somebody that's got belt skills, they're not all created equal either. So
right.
I think it's important to have some substance behind that certification.
Yeah, we do hear that it's easy to get something called a black belt. I mean, I can buy it at the clothing store. It isn't quite the same thing. And also, by the way, it's different than karate. But different programs have different requirements, and you'll have a question later on. What is Lean Six Sigma? If you were to condense it down, because we really don't want to teach it today, I think what it brought to the process improvement world was another model for improvement. And it's not a whole bunch different than other ones out there, but they took this define, measure, analyze, improve, and control model, and you can see the pieces on the screen. But I think the important pieces that Six Sigma brought to the party was the idea of a control phase. That you actually, once you've made an improvement, you learn the ways to make it permanent, long-standing, along with charts and scorecards to manage the performance so you can catch it when it goes bad next time. And the other piece probably is in the analysis. In other ones I see and have trained over my career, not many people really spend the statistical background to prove a belief as you would in the Lean Six Sigma world, do they?
That's right. I think the other point that you make relative to control is very important. A lot of times people may be having a project report out, they talk about control, but in reality it's just a bunch of words. In fact, it actually falls off somebody's plate and it doesn't get followed through.
Yeah, my favorite. My control plan is I'm going to put an audit out there. Well, but audits aren't a control plan. I mean, audits are a way you'd audit to make the control plans being executed, but doing an audit, I'm sorry, I'm getting back to teaching. But there's a lot to this. The class takes weeks, and I'm going to try to talk about it in an hour here. Let's move on. First poll question, because we believe polls let you guys interact with us a little bit. We've talked about Lean and Six Sigma. We've inferred other systems. So here's 5 other improvement systems. If you would, pick all that you are familiar with. I think you get to pick more than one in this one. And they're all about even right now. I get to see it as you guys click in on them. In the end, we'll show you the way it looks, and it's clearly, Alon, not going to be a Pareto chart, is it?
No. So we'll close the poll here in about 5 seconds. Got a good participation rate.
All right.
And I'll go ahead and close that. And
it should pop up on your screen. And what it looks like is root cause analysis might have been the winner by a nose, with the Lean being next. But Lean and Six Sigma came close. And the one that guessing came out at the bottom for us.
It did.
That's good news.
Well, I guess I don't know what to say about that one, because I would have figured everybody knows what the problem is, and I'm sure your bosses all know about it. But the trial and error really is the most common way to solve problems now, is you try it one at a time. And I'll tell you, if you got a lot of time, it works. The problem is sometimes it takes years. And trial and error and guessing, if you don't understand it sometimes with some of the concepts that Lean and Six Sigma can pull out for you, it's really tough to get the right answers.
Yeah, and if you got an interaction, boy, you can really go around in circles.
If it's 2 things.
And as one attendee comments, there's guessing, and then there's also following a hunch.
Well, intuition's what got us in most of our problems, so maybe it'll get us out too. That's a great, we call that management by hope, right?
That's right. Well, but if they say, for example, we've got a process and we're really trying to reduce the lead time to it, and we got a high-level view of it, what I call 30,000 foot, and you really know if I just move these things around that it can make a difference. I'm saying, hey, go and do it. But proof of the pudding that you really made a difference was that 30,000 foot level, that high-level view, actually made a difference. But if it didn't, then the thing is, maybe yes, you might have made some change, but it didn't make a difference.
Yep, we're gonna circle back to that one too.
Yep.
That's one of the reasons your manager will want you to take this, so you can boost your career. Taking a
You got it in there again, didn't you?
They've been training me on marketing. Certifications. Forrest discussed it earlier about certifications. We get into this with clients all the time. Who certifies you? There really is no central authority for certifications in Lean and Six Sigma. There are a lot of people that say they are. There's some Lean places. There's American Society of Quality. I've seen a number of people. There's associations that have been started up saying we are the certification group that everybody trusts. But in reality, there is not any central authority on even what it takes to be certified.
I think one of the things that's also important here is those certification bodies, it's a multiple choice type test, and you can't use a computer, and sometimes you're not going to be able to use a book. So how good does that actually really check how well you actually could apply the techniques?
Let's go through certification. What's interesting is most every organization has their own rules. Even our clients that we have a model, they may change it for their own people, require more. What Forrest spoke about a test, and we don't dig into it too deep here, but the primary certification things I see, tests, projects, some people do capstones, some don't even require anything but finishing the class. We have a poll question coming up, so think about what you believe should be part of certification. You get a chance to give us your inputs on that a little bit. But what are we certifying to? We use the martial arts model, green belt and black belt, and you can see how we define them. And I think even force green belts aren't even the same everywhere.
No, that's true.
Yeah, some green belts are team leaders, but to us a green belt is an independent improvement leader in their own organization, right?
That's correct.
Black belts we see as a more of a flexible, can improve anywhere, so that's why they have a greater level of training, a lot of soft skills and stuff. But you'd expect a good black belt could walk anywhere in any business and make an improvement. Now, master black belts, of which we are, of course, but they're generally leaders of a program. They're instructors, mentors for people. You say the black belt might be the 98% solution. Master black belts give you that 2% that you wouldn't have thought of. They help you through programs, and we use them for teachers, but also we help our students through that as support well after they're done with their training.
I think that mentor is very important, and a lot of times people don't take advantage of that, but we kind of pride ourselves into that. If somebody's got a problem, they can go give us a call, and then we can help them along the way. You know, I was mentor and still learning too myself now, but when I was at IBM, I was mentor like 12 years, from a great statistician. And I think the thing is, we need to have somebody we can talk to, and a lot of times we'll have the training that doesn't really offer that very much.
It's not in our Boost Your Career piece. I'm doing it again.
Yeah.
It's the idea that you have a mentor out there that but you recognize that there's a solution to this. You don't remember, you have somebody you can call to help. Other certifications, yellow belt, white belt, both of those are training classes, generally formal with an instructor or online. You can see a yellow belt is much a team member. It varies a lot at different programs. White belt's been just used as an executive awareness orientation type course. Now there's champion and sponsors, which are also for executives. They usually target people that are going to be finding problems and charting or describing them in a way that they work well for the Lean Six Sigma practitioners. There's also Kaizen leaders, and there's a number of bronze, silver, and gold, I think, are the 3 levels they talk about lean training. We don't provide them, but they're generally similar to a yellow, green, and a black belt level training, but they're in only lean, not the lean and the Six Sigma. Is that a fair representation?
I think that's pretty good.
They're good. They're just different consultants and groups choose what they certify to. Now, what can a Six Sigma belt fill in black or green, or master, I guess? I didn't think about it when we put this together. What are they able to do when you come out of the class? Because at some level, we have to sell our leadership that these tools are worthwhile learning, because there's stuff we can do. But the clear one is solve business problems and implement changes in a team-based environment. That's really the primary project-based piece of a Lean Six Sigma black or green belt. But they can do a lot more, can't they?
Yeah, I think one of the things is, especially with our training, is how do you look at performance measurements over time, and how can you track those so you can gain more insight in what's normally gained from the way that they're reporting, and how do you actually improve that? So I think that that's one thing that they should be able to do, but a lot of times that's not covered in.
Yeah, we're going to develop that a little bit more going through here, but we expect that of our belts in general as part of a project too. But what can they do more? So let's talk about the roles. When you train belts, they're really better than just problem solvers, although they can solve problems well. They're better employees, they're leaders, they actually get more successful in everything they do. It's some people, that's the main reason they go to training. It isn't for the projects. They may only do 1 or 2 projects in their career. What they do the rest of the time is just make their company better, which I think is a big focus. So we got question number 2 here. I'm telling you where we're going, but what holds people back from actually going to obtain training that could boost their career? If you post the thing up here, I guess it's up there now. Does it cost too much? Unable to find time away from the business to take it? Someplace, are they afraid that you will leave the company is why they don't train you? Or they say it's not part of your job, or they just say because you can't go. Let's see how we're looking. Ooh, the early ones. Cost and time are driving the top. They're racing to the finish line right now. It looks like we're about done. If you would just finish up now, Alon's going to close the poll. Forrest, you want to guess which one was the biggest?
Well, it's time or cost. I'll bet you that.
It is time and cost.
Yeah.
But it's actually time.
Time.
And that goes back to our original premise of why, or what's happened in businesses. They're cutting staff back, letting people go. You can't be gone for a whole week, although they do let you go on vacation sometimes. But to go away for training, sometimes it's not the cost. It's just you can't be gone that long, and it is hard. This is a solid set of training that you can't do an hour a day sometimes.
Yeah, we got the e-learning type thing, but but that's difficult to squeeze in your day sometimes. Some people have difficulty with the discipline to doing that.
But yeah, really 3/4 said it was the time, or the unable to find time, and about half said the cost was also an issue. And it is. I mean, companies don't want to spend money in some of the uncertain economics right now. If you close that up, and we will move on. Thank you, Alon. So we're going to get into the section called Why Your Manager Should Want You to Be Trained. I mean, the picture there is one is it helps on your resume. And we'll get back to it in the end. But I see a lot of it on resumes right now saying additional skills desired, but it's not the primary job. So let's go into what other things you could do. Or I would say if you have a black belt or a green belt on your resume, people will see that is you should be able to do these following things. This is why you should train. One is you can solve problems, of course. That was the big driver in it. Big problems, little problems, customer problems, supplier problems.
So notice that's more than just having a certification stamped on your head. You got to be able to execute.
Yeah, and I think that's when you have it on your resume, they assume you can execute it. I think some people find everybody can't. But that is the goal. The next one. Forrest, do you want to take that one?
Yes. I think the thing is what you'd like to get the point is not just doing a project that somebody from above told you to do, but how do you go in and look at the enterprise as a whole? How can you maybe look at metrics a little bit differently? How can you determine the capability of your analysis in words that everybody understands? And also looking at the business risk that you might have. Consider BP's oil spill. Okay, the people at the bottom of the organization chart really knew that there was an issue, but that didn't get communicated in a timely fashion to the people at the top, and a lot of times they've been taking risks for maybe a long time, and nothing really bad happened. More recently, here in Texas and other parts of the country, Bluebell ice cream had bacteria that was involved, and they ended up closing some facilities, laying off a bunch of people, but they knew about the problem for several years ago. But all this information wasn't readily available. They didn't really look at their metrics in a fashion that encouraged action whenever there were some issues. So that's one of the things I think it's really important in the training to convey the business side of it, not just executing projects and be able to answer some questions around some statistical tools in the certification test.
But I see a lot of our students get asked to analyze a business. I was on a consulting job recently that said, would you please, here's our scorecards, analyze our performance. What does it say to you? A good black belt can do that, even in an area they're not a subject matter expert. So this is another thing, business analysis.
And what you guys are talking about is exactly what this attendee commented.
Oh, what did they say?
They made a comment that experience is just as important as training, and what you guys are saying is experience is even more important than the training. The training is a tool to get the experience, but they mentioned that you need the experience in a real-world problem or project.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. It goes to a cliche or a phrase I like that life is a lousy teacher because you get the consequence before the lesson sometimes. And I think when you do it by experience, you end up making a lot of mistakes to get there. That's really the trial and error. Training, the reason it exists is to give you the experience that people before you have learned and documented. Why should you learn it all over again? That's why people have training. It is training that gives us a lot more powerful than mistakes. I don't have enough time even at my age to make all the mistakes in the world. I have to learn from others too. You just don't have time.
Yes, and I think the other thing that Rick pointed out, we tend to hire the belts, instead of training on the inside of the organization. But the inside of the organization, those are the people that maybe have the experience with the processes. And if you can go in and somehow work it out, so now you can get some of the tools associated with it we're talking about, then it's a real win-win for everybody.
You betcha. Next reason why. Develop and maintain performance scorecards and dashboards. I see a lot of our students get rolled into performance monitoring. Why? Because when they did their project, guess what you have to do? You have to find a metric. You have to find a way to display it, communicate it, and we go back to that control plan for us. Part of the control plan is putting together performance scorecards or dashboards so people know the performance in a go-forward basis.
Yeah, I think the one thing that is underscore the word variation. A lot of the scorecards that we typically have, red, yellow, green, table of numbers, or stack bar charts or whatever, they don't really talk about process variation. And that's one of the things I think that's really important that you should have as a takeaway. How are you going to look at these performance measures and include variability in that? That's what we like to talk about in our training.
And most belts, if they're well trained, of course, I'm going to assume they're trained by somebody as good as we are, but they understand what a good metric is. They understand when it's actionable. They understand how to apply them, and you find out they give great advice to the people doing scorecards. Next one is they can actually lead or deploy just about anything. I see belts drug into software development. I see them pulled into projects that are late, have them manage it. Keeping communication with everybody or managing the timeline. It just turns out as a black or green belt, when you're done, you've learned how to manage a project pretty well. And you get doing that instead of running an improvement project. You just learn leadership too. Have a voice of the customer. To me, I think it's one of the undersold pieces of most Lean Six Sigma training. But even identifying who's the customer, who cares about your process or your system, understanding when they ask you something, it's not you have to do everything. Some voice is different. I think that's a great skill that most Lean Six Sigma practitioners learn. But I would say for us that that's one that they mostly don't figure out until at the end of their first project, because I think you have to experience at some level what people are doing and understand how to ask them.
Yeah, I think that's really important because sometimes we tend to answer the wrong question in the third decimal place. We need to go look at what's important to the customer and put that all together. And also, how are we going to get feedback from the customer too? Because a lot of times we just, and you've seen them, I'm sure, just like I have, these surveys, and they're biased. They want to have a good answer whether you're not happy or not. But how do you go in and get voice of the customer of how actually things are performing and what you could do to make them better?
And I admit some people it's lessons learned there, and I've had mine, where you take the advice of someone who seems so trustworthy, but one point of input on the customer is not good, is it?
No.
You got to learn to get it in different places. But that's another great thing, is going out and find out what we should do. How about just manage a team? We talked about implementation and deployment earlier, but just running a team. I have been, I think at one time in my career, I got pulled into the staff meeting for the CEO because one of them had seen me manage my team, and they said, our meetings are chaos. Would you come in and just manage our staff meetings? And we were doing strategic planning. I didn't know half the people, but it's a black belt. I knew the skills how to run a darn meeting, start on time, stop on time. And it may seem trivial to you, but that's really powerful. If you didn't know it, the Wall Street Journal this week, which would make it like the 6th of July, had a story about people that don't show up to meetings on time and poorly managed meetings, but we know how to do that. Communications. Part of a good Six Sigma project is how to communicate to stakeholders, participants, customers, and everything. It turns out in doing that, we're also a great person to help build communication plans for policies, procedures, and deployments of other stuff within the business. Now, this goes back a little bit to the voice of the customer because you have to know who to communicate with. But we found that we have very good credentials that allows us to do this also. Next one, risk. Forrest mentioned earlier, so I'd like him to follow up a bit on this one, business risk.
Yeah, I think that's what we really would like to have, and I mentioned DP and Blue Bell earlier, but how do you go in and have it so that we're looking at the enterprise as a whole relative to taking risks. Now, risk can be all sorts of things. You could have security risk, and the FMEAs might identify that, or you can have some quality risk that people are just ignoring because it's not in part of their strategic plan. It's more meet the numbers or grow the business, and all of a sudden some of the other metrics relative to quality that could really be very detrimental to your organization, that is leading to the wrong sets of behaviors. So I think it's really important that we have somewhat an open kimono type thing, is everything is out there and we can't play games with the numbers. And so if we're going in and having some risks out there, that they really show to the right person so they can take action, or at least they're held accountable for that.
And I think the key point there is it says on the slide, the quantitative piece. Just saying you have risk doesn't have the impact when you go through a basic tool and say, wow, I really do have an impact risk, and whether it's the FMEA or traditional risk analysis, that it really is bigger than I ever thought. Once you put numbers to it, how often could this cause occur? How severe is the impact if it does occur? And what do I have in place? Just looking at it with numbers, even though they're somewhat arbitrary scored numbers, you can really point out some big risky stuff that no one ever thinks about.
I was dealing with a company here who was dealing with, they made aluminum extrusions, and it was for the automobile industry. And I helped them do it. They had die breakage that was equal to about total revenue for particular parts. So I did a design of experiment, helping them eliminate die breakage for not only that part, but for the other parts too. So that was a good thing. However, I made the point, I said, gee whiz, don't you think you have a risk here when with this dealing with one of the major automobile companies that, over 80% of your business is with this one company. And what happens if you're losing that business? You're in trouble, and they weren't even looking at that as a risk.
That's right. Little things like that, it's nice to put tools, and you get tools to deal with that.
Yeah, and then, or even like, for example, if your primary suppliers in an area that's subject to flooding or hurricanes or something like that, what happens if you lose that supply chain?
Yeah, I got drug into a near-miss safety accident because they figured a good black belt could sit there and go diagnose really what went on, and we found way more risk of injury to people than they even realized just by methodically walking through the stuff they teach you in class. Next one, cross-functional efforts. A good belt, and probably in this case a little more of a black than a green, but greens can figure it out, green belts and black belts I mean, is it building bridges across silos, working with them, because it's part of the teaming you get. A lot of times they'll drag us in to run things that coordinate across silos that don't get along well just because of our skills. And I think at some level, as Forrest has mentioned a couple times, it's the system thinking or looking towards the business benefit rather than silo benefit can really be a benefit from belts.
I think we talk about the value chain in our training, where I think that that's a good mechanism where it measures what you do and how you measure what you do, and that's a good way of going in and bridging those silos in an organization.
It can work well. Isn't this a lot of why your manager should want you to get trained? This should be just exciting to you right now. And by the way, we're still not getting many questions. We really do like them. That's 2 so far, but keep going, please. We're going to give a pause at the end, but we'll save them up too if you have any. Next one, why you should be wanting to get trained, or your boss, financial analysis. I find most green belts and black belts, and even some master black belts, really have never looked at financials and understand them enough that they actually can make good financial decisions, the company. And I'll admit it was a learning late in my Six Sigma career that it's really all about the money. Doesn't seem fair, but it's all about the money. So understanding how the monetary impact of projects, improvements, and efforts helps us make better decisions, or probably in that case for us, be better advice to our leadership on how to do things.
Yes, a lot of times what we'll do is pick projects just through strategy that came down from above. However, if we go in and deal with this financial analysis and we start looking at the big picture, we might identify that it's most beneficial if we would reduce the defective rates or returns or things like that. And we have that metric reported out, and that could be something that would really be strategic benefits. So we like to look at measurement improvement needs that help the big picture pull for the creation of projects. So then it doesn't fall off of people's plates.
Because it matters.
It matters, and there's a process owner that's responsible for it there and accountable for making that improvement to help the big picture.
All right. We're getting down to the next poll question. We've just been talking about actions that a belt could do that aren't a project or spinning them off. So if this poll question, I'd like you to pick where you believe the right mix would be for your company if someone was trained as a green or black belt on the time that they're at work that they spend doing improvement projects or other benefits to the company. So I'd like you to pick them up there. Looks like the upper percentages on projects are winning right now. Ooh, the polls are changing. It's just like watching the dot race at the ball game, isn't it? You don't know who's going to win. But it looks like it's centered on mostly the middle ground, which, if you would, we'll give you another second here and post it.
Sure, we have most responses here, and close and share those results.
And what you'll find is the 75 and 50% were the winners, and about a third of you picked those. And still a fourth of them thought primary projects would be doing the 100% for us. But I think in my history, beginning of the Lean Six Sigma journey, you spend a lot more on projects. I think as the business matures, they move less projects, more other stuff. And part of this might be biased if they work on their own or within a Lean Six Sigma organization, what you get to do. Mm-hmm. But I think you have to do the blend. It's the blend of them that will really boost your career.
Great. And
go ahead.
One question we have on the last point that you guys made as far as why your manager wants you trained. Do you guys have examples of financial analysis conducted for a project?
Well, every project, improvement project we use for certification, we expect some level of financial analysis. Sometimes it's as simple as I saved this many labor hours, which converts into a standardized time, but we expect that they can manage from hours to defect savings or rework removal or even simplification through a lean project, removing non-value-added steps, so that they can estimate the financial impact of it. But we also find some that the financial impact is truly zero because they're fixing something that could be what would be unmeasured for morale, customer view. There are still projects that they realize there isn't any. Forrest, do you have anything on that?
One thing here is I like a lot of times what's normally taught in the training is cost of poor quality, and that's what they look at from how much does it cost from a quality point of view. However, to me, I like to look at, instead of that, as cost of doing nothing differently. Okay, so that to me is perhaps a little bit more of a beneficial baseline. For example, inventory. You know, that's got a certain amount of cost associated with it. Now, we can't bring it down to zero, you know, because we, you know, for obvious reasons, we maybe want to have something available. But the thing is, that's not really a quality metric. But still, we could look at initially how much is that inventory costing us, and then we could say, hey, maybe we want to go in and if we analyze it, we could say there's some opportunities there. Now, when we start speaking money in terms like this, or we start speaking in terms of money when we're talking relative to process, then guess what? We get other people that's higher in the organization interested.
We do.
But we want to make sure that we're not playing games with numbers. A lot of times we've had people say we've saved $100 million but nobody can find the money. But that's not a good thing.
But that's some of that's if you've ever been trained in this, the hard and soft savings, which we're not going to get into. But every project should show benefit of some kind. We just think you also should be able to speak the financial language of your business, too, to help you be heard.
One question.
Oh, please.
Another question we have here. I am in the strategic planning office. Do you consider this a part of operations?
Of operations? What's interesting, you could ask a question, should there ever be a strategic planning office, or should the leadership of the company be doing strategic planning? But strategic planning is about operations, but it's also about growth. It's about investments. There's so many other things that you might get involved in. But what I can see Forrest, he just wants to speak of how you treat strategic planning. So go ahead, Forrest.
Okay, yeah.
I'm starting to smile.
Getting on the soapbox here. A lot of times organizations start with strategic planning, and then they use the Hoshin planning or the balanced scorecard to line everything up to the strategic plan. But a lot of times the wording of those, I want to be the best of the best, and it's hard to cascade that throughout the organization. So I like to use the integrated enterprise excellence approach, where strategic plan fits as part, as step 5 in the 9-step process, as part of an enterprise process management system. So I prefer to look at strategic planning as part of an enterprise process management system, where now you're doing the value chain and you're looking at metrics and so on to help build more of a targeted strategies that lead to 30,000-foot level operational metrics that pull for the creation of projects. Lean Six Sigma process projects is being one of those that's going to help the process and the enterprise as a whole. So I think that's something that you might want to consider doing it.
Going back to that too, should it be part of operations was the question. I think most strategic planning departments are actually deployment mechanisms. They probably don't set the strategies. They're provided the strategy to deploy and make sure it gets done. I still think that's probably not operations. And in a general sense, I would think an operations organization is the people that are generating revenue, which we would put in the value chain, that they're doing an operation that the customer pays for. And at some level, every planning effort would never be an operations, would it? I guess unless you're a program management corporation.
Yeah. I look at it as if I had an ideal system here, I'd put it as a part of enterprise process management as one of the pieces of that, where strategic planning fits in there. And they're the ones that are looking at the operations, how the numbers are looking. So now you're actually making your strategies off of hard data that looks at it as a process, not just.
So I guess our advice is not operations, probably a support organization.
Yep.
I know there's people that have professional careers at strategic planning teams wouldn't agree, but I think it's still a support group. Moving on here, leveraging skills. A well-trained belt should be able to work anywhere in a business. You can see these are standard ones, but also that's why you'd see good Lean Six Sigma programs such as ours don't do genre-specific training. We don't teach the manufacturing version, the healthcare version, the financial version, because why would you want to limit yourself to only one facet of business when we see that every business has transactional stuff. Every business has some level of a manufacturing analogy. Even if I was with a recruiting organization, they're still producing paperwork on candidates. So these analogies between service industry and manufacturing, I think you should train all of them, because when you do that, you don't know where your next project will lie, do you?
Well, and I think also if you have generic and then you start talking about specifics for individual attendees, that's a good thing, because then they're all just numbers on how you look at it, and also the soft side of it too. So if it's not just geared to one industry, then you can start reading papers that are in another industry, and you can say, hey, those are just numbers. I can apply that to my world too.
And I guess it also fits this boosting your career because you have a generic skill rather than specific.
How many times have you got boosting here?
You haven't heard the end of it yet.
Oh, yes, okay.
Other things. A lot of our students use it to fix their resume, and Forrest inferred earlier that there are people that we get called up and said all they want is put certification so they can put it on their resume. If that's your feeling, don't call us, by the way. But we really want to deal with people that are trying to grow their skills, and you can just go take a test at some areas you want certification. But really we found that people have used this to leverage a new career, jump to a new field. It's wonderful because you've shown a very good ability to do generic skills. And many of the belts that we train are promoted soon afterwards into leadership or management positions, because what they've shown about being some of those tasks why your manager would want you trained, about leadership, communication, getting things done, that gets people into leadership positions. So this type of training does open doors for you. we do find that some corporations use this Lean Six Sigmas for their high potential employees, or whatever you may call them. The fast runners, groomed for promotion, the little words you put in it. Sometimes black belt training is an MBA equivalent to process thinking. If they think you've got an innate ability to solve problems and figure stuff out, they'll put you in a program like this to really fine-tune your skills, because then you could be on the Avengers next time the movie comes out. You could be so good. Okay, that might be a reach. What's good? We've mentioned good, and I mean, of course, we think we're good. But what defines good? Because I'll tell you, when you look at a website, all Six Sigma training looks like Six Sigma training, because they give you something called a black belt or a green belt certification, but they are not all equal. So one of the things is it should cover an entire body of knowledge. We accept ASQ, but there's a number of them out there that they're all quite similar. But every program should be grounded to some complete body of knowledge. You shouldn't only be taught what your instructor knows. There should be some statistical analysis on it. If you get a program that does it all qualitatively, at some level you're learning TQM all over again from the 80s. Part of this whole Lean Six Sigma is the rigor of testing beliefs and collecting evidence to make sure you did it right. We believe in using real software. I think we use Minitab for most of it. We have some other stuff we use. There's a few Excel add-ins that are, I guess I'd call them adequate, but a majority of the ones you see are add-ins are just Excel, which is not a very robust method to do analysis. Now here's what we think. You're going to get a question on what you think later on this, but we require a project for certification. How do you know that someone can apply something without having them apply it? A multiple choice test does not show the ability to apply a skill. It should provide good references. I think Forrest's book, which we talked about at the beginning, and we'll have another slide later, we teach out of a comprehensive book that even ASQ lists as one of their reference books for the total body of knowledge of Lean Six Sigma. But having that, good references, good slides, and other resources mean that you're not done. Because too many times I complain that I get done with a class, I just throw the PowerPoint slides away.
Yeah, and also in the book, what I tried to do when putting it together is it follows a very detailed roadmap. So there's a lot of Six Sigma books out there, but the thing is, as far as the DMAIC roadmap, it doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty details of actually doing it. So when you're not going, unless you're a very unusual person, you're not going to remember everything that you had in the class. And so now it becomes a reference that you can go back to. And you can also talk to suppliers and other people that didn't take the class. Say, look at this example, such and such, on page such and such. Hey, this is what I'm doing.
Yep. Plus, when it's in a book, it seems more real. And the last one is we think it should involve an interaction and coaching of the student. Too much of Lean Six Sigma is business-like and not math-like, that you really have to talk it through sometimes. And having a good coach really helps you through. So that's good. What are typical classes? And we'll give you what ours are, and I think they're typical for the better programs. 2-week classes, if you have the classroom one, 2 full weeks separated by a month for a green belt. Generally 4 total weeks separated each by a month, or 2 additional to a green belt. That makes a black belt. So about twice the hours of training. And really what you're getting is more detailed soft skills and more of the 98% solution.
I have a question here about black belts specifically. And this attendee says, my understanding of a black belt program is that you are looking for KPIs like defects per million. What if your company doesn't have that kind of volume? Is black belt worth it? Oh,
that's great. Thank you. But that is the mentality of Six Sigma when it was created in the 80s. Most of us, as Forrest talked about later, it's not always about fixing quality errors, because I think the blending of the lean into it allows it to reduce non-value added, save money. It's not just defects. I would guess less than 1/3 of our students are chasing defects on their projects.
Yeah, we don't even really get into what they call Sigma quality levels, you know, where you got 3.4 parts per million, you know, and we downplay that, you know, as a metric. You know, we're looking at, you know, from a higher level point of view, what are you trying to do? It could be on-time deliveries. It could be defective rates, because defects per million opportunities can be gained. you're not careful.
Yeah, but I think most of the transactional world, where you're say an insurance claim, we have clients doing that. Every claim gets processed. They have 100% yields every time. They're more worried about how many reworks and retouches they're looking at. They don't call that a quality or defects per million anything. It's just labor. So these tools will drive you to look at the problem in many different terms and units.
Yeah, and for example, even when we did this white belt training yesterday, and somebody's talking about mean time between failure, how are you going to do that? Well, then I talk about, hey, you could look at it, the time between failures, tracking individuals, chart, and so on. So that's not dealing with DPMO or anything like that.
Yeah, so
it's a high-level metric.
A good course will open your mind to other things that can be fixed other than just errors.
Right.
Now we talk here, the Master Black Belt's generally 2 weeks. Most Master Black Belts take it after they've been a Black Belt for a year or two and run a number of projects, and they're really ready to go to the next step. There's also online training. We do online black, green, and yellow. But there's different ways to train all these. Forrest can speak about his book series here.
Yeah, this is a book series that I did a few years ago. Most people are maybe familiar with Implementing Six Sigma. That came out in '99. Then I added Lean in 2003, but that's dealing with the execution of a project. So anyway, kind of enhanced that with Volume 3. That's the one all over on the right-hand side. That's like over 1,100 pages. But in this, it's got a very detailed roadmap for the DMA. And the tracking, or this book itself, follows the roadmap itself, where Implementing Six Sigma Volume 2 didn't. Now, Volume 2 of this series gets into this business system. How do you look at your business, and how do you measure it and improve it? So it's got a 9-step system here, or enterprise DMA, and that's what we teach also in Master Black Belt Week 1. We cover that book. Now, Volume 1, that's the second from the left there, is written as a novel. We got 4 golfers, and they describe issues they have with traditional ways of making improvement, and why this integrated enterprise excellence approach for Lean Six Sigma and make improvements better. And then the black book on the left-hand side does the same type of thing as Volume 1, but from a different, not a novel point of view, a novelism book.
But that one's also available. It's free on our website as an ebook if you want.
That's correct.
And by the way, we think that if you bought all these books, put them on your shelf, that might boost your career too, at least for book readers.
That's right.
I made that one up.
Yeah.
Now, Forrest's been talking about the roadmap. You can sort of see those colors at the bottom. That is a low-resolution screenshot of it. It's really 96 inches long, plotted out. And it really is step-by-step how you do it. We've documented in another book called the Lean Six Sigma Project Execution Guide. So like if you keep your textbooks on your shelf, this blue book here on the right would be the one you turn pages and follow through your project. But it's to be a reminder.
One student said keep it on their desk.
Keep it on their desk. But yeah, it's got individual pictures, but we give all students a PDF of the whole map so they can print it at home. But it's good. Last question, because we do these for free. Get an idea if you're interested in training, if you wouldn't mind put down if you're thinking about some type of training, when you might be your window of opportunity. But we're comfortable with not right now too, if that's what you choose. Because we don't talk about it much here, but continuing education on these topics is still important, even if you're not taking a class. So right now we're getting a good split between the bookends, soon and not right now. But that's good if you would wrap up the poll here.
Okay. Yeah, I'll close this here in a couple of seconds. And thank you guys for your input.
Yeah, again, it looks like about a third are soon, and about a third are looking for one, not looking right now. And the rest of you are maybe in the future. But that's a great cut. It's always interesting where people are in their development career. Last one, this is why we ask some of this, continue your education. What Forrest has put together here is a business that majority of our website is free information for practitioners of Lean Six Sigma and business managers and analysts and scorecard and strategic planning folks. On our website, one of the tabs is called Resources, and you'll see blogs that Forrest and I write. We'll see a resource library that's got most of your publications, not the books necessarily. glossaries of terms. Forest favorites is a favorite of Forrest, actually is. But it's a lot of his points and from discussions at conferences and stuff that have come up that are, it's more written to it looks like a table of contents of things the businesses do and what our thoughts are and how it fits into what we do.
How you can do things a little bit better and how you can track them better, at least from my point of view anyway.
Or even just try something new if you're not satisfied with what you're doing now too.
Yep.
Let's get to the bottom because we're running out of time. Looking for a job. If you look at many jobs out there in the network, Monster, Indeed, a lot of them say the job's not posted for a belt, but it says they like you to have it. The question I ask is if two people are equally experienced and one's got a black belt, who gets the job? I think that right there talks about why people go do this. So we've been to the summary. We've covered a lot of stuff. Is there any outstanding questions left along?
We do have some questions. And Forrest, I think you talked about this earlier. And also let me just say, if you do have questions, go ahead and enter those in. We'll try to get to a couple of these here. But Forrest, one attendee asked, can you explain the difference between Lean and Six Sigma and the Integrated Enterprise Excellence System? And I know you talked on that earlier, so I'll give that question to you.
Well, people, this normal definition or normal thought is Lean reduces waste. You can have transportation waste, you can have motion waste, you can have inventory and so on, and defects included in that. And then Six Sigma is to reduce the amount of defects. That's the traditional way of thinking that. But I think that they're really kind of interconnected. There's a lot of hooking over. And one of the things that I think is really important is what I call this 30,000-foot level view, high-level view of your measurements. And that's what I cover also in as far as favorites. Now, integrated enterprise excellence, really, if the whole enchilada is a business system. It's a 9-step business system, and cover that in volume 2 in details on that. But what you really want to do is looking at what you do and how you measure what you do. That's kind of one of the things after your vision mission, and that's in a value chain. And then step number 3 is you analyze your enterprise as a whole. Step number 4 is which metrics you are going to improve financially. And then step 5 is your strategies. So right now we're not really leading to strategies as step number 1. And then we get to which metrics do we want to improve, that's step number 6. And the process owner that's asking for that to get done. If you did a good job on step 7 of your, then you improve the value chain, which improved your 30,000-foot level, which improved your satellite level metrics. If the 9-step system, step number 9 leads to step number 3. Okay, I got a passion about this, and I really went through it rather quickly, but if you go in and shoot me an email, I can go in and lead you someplace on our website that will give you more details about this methodology.
Great.
I'm going to wrap it up a little bit more, though, but IE really involves our view of how Lean Six Sigma is part of your business system instead of just being alone for its projects. We talked about the enterprise side, but on the Lean Six Sigma side, it's how it teaches you how to fit it into the business.
That's exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that.
By the way, we're at 1 hour. We committed to an hour. We're going to stay over a little bit. If you're willing to stay, we appreciate it, but we'll understand if you have to log off.
Great. And thank you. Again, Forrest mentioned you can email him. That's Forrest, F-O-R-R-E-S-T, @smartersolutions.com. For one participant, I did change the slides back to get this information about the job search.
Okay.
But for those of you who are asking about specific questions about our class structure, we have questions about the coaching. How long does one expect the coaching to come with the class? And another question, I'll let you guys answer this kind of together, is about the class setup for black belt. If I took the green belt class, did not finish my project, can I still go to black belt?
Well, let's go backwards on the question because that one was the easiest. Because some people, black belt is still a beginner's class. Many people start there and never go through a green belt certification. So if you went to the green belt and the follow on to black belt, some people do that without ever running the first project. That's wonderful. Doesn't matter. So no, the black belt and green belt are both considered beginner classes. The prior question was,
about coaching time?
Coaching.
How long can you expect after the course to receive the coaching?
The company line that Forrest will want me to say is that we guarantee coaching for 12 months. We get X number of hours per class, and we guarantee that you'll get it as part of your class for 12 months after the end of the class. But I also know that we're pretty liberal with that within our discretionary time, we have helped people. I have coached somebody that recently that took the class before I joined 9 years ago. But a lot of it, if you've been past that year, you may not get an immediate response. It may take a day or two. And I know I use those coaching questions to write blog reports on.
Yeah, I think we've got, like I said, pretty liberal. We believe in this coaching aspect, so I can't think of anyone we turn them away. You know, that.
I remember one.
Okay.
One was they were going to do it. They basically wanted us to work their project and do the analysis for them.
Yeah. Okay.
We turned that one away. Coaching's okay. Doing your job is not okay.
Yeah.
We do draw a line there. But generally, we'll help you forever. I've got, I'm still coaching a guy from my last company who we still talk about stuff. People who teach us stuff are so passionate. We love doing it because we all learn at the same time. So I think we say 12 months, but as long as it's just coaching, we'll go past that.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, since you're taught from the book, then you describe your problem, you know, in 5 minutes, and my mind's going, and I say, that's just like example number 10.3. So then I said, turn to example 10.3, and you can do it. And now you've got something that's documented, and you just change the numbers, and then you can follow it very quickly, and you do it. Or I might have a webinar, or I might have a forest favorite that describes it, and so now you can do it. So it's not like we have to reinvent something all the time, because a lot of the questions sound very similar that they have.
All right, I think that's a good. That probably satisfies. We have another one along.
Yes, we do have a couple other questions. I'll finish up here with copies of today's presentation. We will have a recording available online and share that link with everybody. Another question, our all-time, every webinar question, how do we sell this in a small company that is struggling to survive and the company does not see the value in long-term benefits when short-term is a struggle? So how do we sell?
That is such a hard call, because you know what? You don't start looking for long-term benefits when you're going to close next week because of cash flow. And we do understand that. There is a business aspect to it. If there is no money, I don't know how you sell a training class for your employees. So at some level, it's the balance there. It depends your constraint, I think, Forrest. Is it you can't be away from work? Well, that you'd answer that one differently by maybe doing an online class that you can do between tasks. If it's money, maybe you do time payments, or you end up working and we sell it versus what can be changed. Like if you have a $10,000 course and you have a $100,000 problem, sometimes you sell it because it'll pay for itself. There's lots of ways to do it, I think. Small companies are harder. I mean, we have some people that do it on their own money just because they want to do their job better and sometimes to move on.
Yeah, one of the things is I can remember situations that come up. I'm involved with the ASQ, and somebody comes up to me and says, Forrest, I've been laid off. What should I do? I really come back and I say, what should you have done when you were at the company previously? Maybe you should have gone in and not necessarily do everything the boss tells you to, or at least you need to do that. But the thing is, you also might do some pushbacks or say, hey, I need to go get some certification so I do things smarter. So you're adding more value to your company while you're there. And then if the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, you can have that skill set to help you find another job too.
But it is tough to sell in small companies. And at some level, small companies don't have a purpose of training their individuals. Yeah. You're there just to make money, and you make more money sometimes at small companies than you spend on training yourself, I guess. Just hard.
And here's a thought. Would something like a Kaizen, a smaller class or a smaller opportunity for consulting within a company be an option as well?
Oh, in that level, we have done some of that. We'll bring in one of our instructors when we're not teaching and go run a small improvement project to show the benefit of it out. So yeah, you can do that. The hard part is if you try to run an improvement event because you want to do Six Sigma and you just read a quick book on it, my guess is you will probably lose status rather than gain it. There really is a methodology to follow to increase your probability of success. but bringing in an outsider is another way to sell it in the company.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is you might go in and ask in the company, what's the most important metric? Obviously, they're going to have revenue, but you say, well, let's get down to an operational metric. Maybe it's not on-time deliveries, or it's our marketing, or it's dealing with defective rates. You know, now you could take that and track that and say, hey, I really want to improve this metric, and I need to take the training to improve that particular metric. So you're not trying to boil the ocean, in other words.
All right.
Great.
We're just about done here. Do we have any more, or is that it for now?
We have one question relating to BPM, and we'll use this as our last question. Just one attendee asked, how does this training relate to business process management?
Boy, that is something we've been looking at. Business process management is probably less defined than Six Sigma right now. And I think if you look at, there's one body of knowledge out there, and there's a couple organizations pushing it, but they see Lean Six Sigma as a methodology to improve a business process that is inadequate. So it's one of the tools they leverage to make change. Business process management generally is a bit bigger. If you hear from a software company, it's all about software. If you hear about others, it's more about system thinking and the automation.
Documentation, too.
Yeah, the automation, the standardization of stuff with computers. But they see that as a way to improve the process before you systemize it, standardize it, or try to automate it.
Yeah, I started presented at a BPM conference, and I was kind of surprised what an analyst did in their eyes. Really, that integrated enterprise excellence system put together, to me, is equivalent of a BPM type thing, where you can automate some of the processes if that's really important. So to me, that they're somewhat similar, and you can actually do BPM. A BPM solution could be that integrated enterprise excellence.
Yeah, we're working with a client that's doing BPM, and they brought in a Six Sigma program because they're people that understand processes, can diagram them, and prepare them for movement into the BPM system. So it's a good leverager.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us for Boost Your Career with Lean Six Sigma. Forrest and Rick, thank you. I do have one quick testimony I'll read from one of the attendees who's actually joined our Green Belt class. He just talked this morning to his Vice President of Services, and I'm reading direct quotes. Although I'm not hired as a Lean Six Sigma expert, he was congratulating me, and he's a black belt, the VP is a black belt, on how the Lean Six Sigma knowledge bleeds through his work. This guy is a project manager, and if the Green Belt stuff is bleeding through my work, he's just excited about what the black belt knowledge can do as well. So guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for that testimony, and you guys have a great day.
And by the way, that really wasn't staged. That's a surprise to Forrest and I both to hear that.
Thanks
We didn't fake it. Thanks, guys.